At some point, Ash Ketchum is going to have to retire from actively circling around Pokemon leagues and settle down a bit. Maybe pass the torch to the next generation. At least, many fans hope so. Whether he will or not, we'll see. In this series, we explore what that could look like. Ash Ketchum could settle down. The intro to the series is up over there, and he could take over a gym while he raises a kid or maybe just becomes a background character. Well, what gyms could he do that for? The gym that he could most effectively do that for, or the typing, would be a flying type gym. He has 13 Pokemon of that type, many from his adventures as regional flyers. He has 4 Pokemon that could loosely be described as aces or secondary aces from various series, and he's got a high number of them that are fully evolved. So he can do flying pretty well. In fact, if we want to look at his flying type Pokemon list, it is right here on screen now. But if Ash Ketchum wants to go ahead and have a gym defend it, he needs to not only be able to defend it against people who are challenging for their 8th gym badge, who he gets to use 6 Pokemon for, and maybe they can all be fully evolved, maybe not. He also needs to be able to defend it against people who are coming to try to get their 1st or 2nd badge from him. And that means he needs to be able to field a team of 1 to 2 Pokemon that is actually beatable. And can he do that? Well, yeah, you're actually seeing it up on screen right now. So the first Pokemon he's going to have here is Rowlet, who never evolved. That works out just fine. And the second one is Butterfree. Rowlet comes in here with a base stat total of 320. Butterfree has a stat total of 395. This is a little on the high end for a 1st or 2nd gym, but it is going to be doable. We've got 1 fully evolved Pokemon, 1 that's not. The fully evolved Pokemon has a low stat total. Mostly what you're doing as a gym leader for that 1st or 2nd badge for someone is you're going, hey, this trainer should have 1 or 2 relatively trained Pokemon, and they should understand type matchups. They should be able to come through here with something that is strong against my type. So for flying, that would be Electric. No problem. Ash is very familiar with that. Pikachu the Taskmaster, keeping his flying gym in line. That could be Rock type, or that could be Ice type. It's probably not going to be Ice type. Most people don't have Ice type Pokemon. They're kind of rare when challenging their 1st or 2nd gym. But you know what? If you come in with one of those, you can just have it. But Ash Ketchum is a former champion, so he's going to be a little more difficult than your standard 1st gym leader. And that means he's going to make you work for it a little bit. You can't just show up with a Geodude that you haven't trained at all to beat him. You've got to actually have put a little bit of effort into training that Pokemon. If you come in with an electric type Pokemon, for example, maybe a Pikachu, maybe a Magnemite, that's not quite going to totally take the gym for you. Rowlet only takes neutral damage from electric type. Rowlet does take super effective damage from rock type, but Rowlet is able to also hit back with super effective damage into rock type. Now, if you get past Rowlet, no problem. Your rock type will absolutely crush Butterfree. But by having this Rowlet sort of semi-check here to weed out threats that aren't actually trained, we've now set up a slightly more difficult gym while still being fair. This works pretty well. Butterfree has the higher stat total, so actually gets to be the ace and do the fighting after Rowlet has weeded out threats. Cool. Makes sense to me on the difficult side, but fair. So what happens if you challenge Ash when you already have 1 or 2 badges and you are coming in for badge 3 or 4? Well, he can upgrade his team a little. In fact, he can totally swap out who's there. So to start off with, we're going to put up Noctowl. Noctowl is nothing too special, but has a base stat total of 452, is a normal flyer, sort of a standard regional flying early route Pokemon. Okay, so what does that do? Well, that goes, the opponent should be leading with something that is strong against flying types, and Noctowl is a little bit of a gift to them. It has some stats, it has some training, don't get me wrong, they still have to take it down, but if they come in with their type advantage, they should be able to take down Noctowl. But then they run into Gliscor, and Gliscor's really gonna weed people out as the wall. Obviously immune to that electric type damage, super weak to that ice type damage, but that's okay, and then only takes neutral damage from rock, then hits back for super effective damage against that same electric and rock typing there. And this works well, especially with Gliscor being weak to fire and not adequately, to ice and not adequately checking it, because then Talonflame sits in the back as Ash's mid-level ace and goes, hey, I'm going to tear through any ice types that came through this gym, as well as take care of anyone left now that you can't just take me down with type coverage because Gliscor appropriately blocked you out. And if you had multiple people trained up and were able to get past Gliscor because you had multiple flying checks that were well trained, good on you. That's what you're supposed to do. What you're really doing as a gym leader is making sure people are ready to go to that next step so you can have badge 3 or 4 from Ash Ketchum if you do that. Now we get to one where this is a little bit of a harder gym. We again saw Noctowl had that base stat total of 452. Gliscor 510. Might seem like that should be the ace since Talonflame is only 499, but we've really set Gliscor up there to weed things out rather than to be the actual thing that beats the opponent. So this works pretty well for him. So what happens if you move on and go, hey, I already got Jim badge 3 or 4. Now I'm coming to Ash to get badge 5 or 6. Well, Rowlet is back in the picture as the lead again. This isn't too wild. Rowlet is doing much the same thing. If you have a bunch of strong Pokemon, you can just outmuscle him. You then get Noctowl, mostly for free again if you outmuscled Rowlet, which shouldn't be that hard. And Gliscor and Talonflame go for the same play. This is probably honestly the easiest version of Ash to take down. So if you were, really exchanging notes with other trainers, you'd want to come find Ash for badges 5 or 6, relatively speaking. But then you want to come in for badges 7 or 8. Well, if you're coming here for badges 7 or 8, you have to be able to take down 6 Pokemon. Now, Ash isn't going to go with his strongest team. He's going to respect that he's really acting as a check here to make sure that you know how to do it. You need to be ready to battle with 6 Pokemon, but you probably don't have 6 fully trained Pokemon. Some of those Pokemon are probably a little weaker than others. So he'll meet you halfway and he'll lead with Rowlet. So if you have your own weaker lead, that's fine. Those can match up. But Rowlet still gets to do a little bit of screening out for some of those weaknesses in Electric and Rock again. Noctowl, you should be able to take if you've done your homework in terms of beating a flying type gym. Gliscor is fulfilling the exact same role as before. Nothing too surprising there. But we've gone ahead and dropped Talonflame because we've got Charizard at the back. So in Talonflame's place, we get Swellow. Swellow, no problem, 452 stat total, regional bird, performed well for Ash in his adventures. That makes a fair amount of sense to me. But you can't just roll through Noctowl and Swellow in a row because you're going to have to deal with Gliscor at some point between them. Obviously, Ash can deploy his Pokemon in any order, but we'll generally lead with Rowlet and we'll generally finish with Charizard here. After Swellow, you're going to run into Hawlucha, and what Hawlucha is doing is acting as another check here, this time particularly against Rock type with that flying fighting type. We can look at that and go, hey, we can hit super effective into Rock. We only take the neutral damage against Rock. This is perfectly solid, but now you have to deal with a big boy from Ash, one of the Pokemon he is known for, his Charizard. And once again, we've dealt with those rock types that would have been 4 times effective against it between the Hawlucha, the Gliscor, even to a degree the Rowlet. None of those should be left. Maybe you came in here with an electric type, but Rowlet did a little bit of work against that. Gliscor should have had no problem with that, and Charizard runs through it much like Talonflame would have in previous versions of this team. Fine, but Ash has a stronger team than this. If you get cheeky and try to show up and get a 10th badge from him, or another gym leader wants to skirmish with him, or an Elite Four member wants to play with him, go, hey, you're a previous champion, what can you do? Well, he can still act under the constraints of his flying type gym, but still put up a pretty strong team. Now we've got Talonflame taking over because we don't need Rowlet there to make things easy for the opponents. Talonflame is going to lead, isn't going to be weeding out those electric or rock types, but is instead trying to weed out some of those ice types, with that only taking neutral damage and then hitting them super effective. Butterfree is in here as our special attacker, as well as having the ability to give us a little bit more type coverage with that bug. You can, of course, hit into Psychic. You can, of course, be a second hit into Dark there. Those don't hurt too much. Hawlucha starts softening things up, especially those rock types that we're a little worried about. Gliscor doing exactly what Gliscor has been doing this whole time, this time setting things up for Charizard, and Charizard should be totally set to run through things. But that's not all. You, of course, have Dragonite in the back, and some of you might be going, why isn't Charizard the ace? Charizard should totally be the ace. Well, if Ash had a Mega Stone for Charizard, maybe he would be, but we see Hawlucha here with the 500 stat total. We see Charizard with the 534 stat total. Could go Mega Charizard Y, that would fit, but need the Mega Stone for that. But then we've got Dragonite with the 600 base stat total and that tough typing of Dragon, which gives Dragonite some nice resistances here. So this ends up being Ash's ultimate team, his league defense team against challenges from other people who are being cheeky, or him just having fun at full power while restricting himself to his typing here. So let me know what you guys think. Do you look at this and say, no, this team should actually swap out Butterfree for someone else? Do you look at his first team and say, hey, that's just too strong, Temporal, Ash needs something weaker for first opponents there? Do you maybe look at this middle team and say, hey, he does need a 5th Pokemon here, he sort of jumps from 4 to 6? That might be a reasonable take there. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Remember, we've got his full Pokemon list on the screen right here of the flying types. And also let me know what version you'd like to see next. There are other gyms that Ash could run in semi-retirement here. If there's one of them you want to see, let me know in the comments down below. And I look forward to seeing you guys in the next one. If you're enjoying the content, drop a like, consider subscribing for more Pokemon thought-provoking content. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks. Temporal out.